The Galactic Empress ruled from a throne that floated above the stars. It was not made of gold or stone, but of crystal and light, shaped by forgotten sciences. The throne hovered in the center of a massive hall, so wide that clouds drifted near its ceiling. Thousands of beings stood in silence, generals wrapped in armor, scholars with glowing eyes, diplomats with folded wings. All had conquered worlds. All feared the one seated above. Them, the Empress had ended civilizations. With a single command, she had outlived entire species. She had never been questioned. Today was supposed to be no different. Bring in the human, she said. Her voice calm and cold. The doors at the far end of the hall opened slowly. What entered was not what many expected. There were no chains clanking in anger. No shouting. No proud defiance. Instead, 2 guards carried a man. He was human, thin, broken, and pale. One of his arms was gone, cleanly replaced by an old mechanical brace that no longer worked. His clothes were torn and patched many times, as if he had survived longer than anyone intended him to. One side of his face was covered by a dark bandage. The other eye looked tired, but alert. This was the last human prisoner. Whispers spread across the hall. So this is what remains of Earth, someone muttered. The guards placed the man at the center of the floor. He did not kneel. Not because he was proud, but because his legs no longer obeyed him properly. He stayed upright only by leaning on a metal cane. The Empress looked down at him for a moment. She felt something unexpected. Disappointment. This creature had stood against her fleets. Humans were supposed to be loud, emotional, violent. They were supposed to scream when they lost. This one only breathed quietly. What is your name? The Empress asked. The human lifted his head slowly. It clearly cost him effort. Jonah Reyes, he said. His voice was rough, but steady. You stand before the ruler who shattered your world, the Empress said. Do you understand where you are? Jonah nodded once. Yes, he replied. You are the last of your kind, she continued. Your species is extinct. Your planet is dust. Jonah did not argue. I know, he said softly. The hall grew quiet. The Empress leaned forward on her throne, curiosity replacing boredom. Most prisoners beg, she said. Some curse my name. Some try to die with pride. She studied him carefully. You have done none of these. Jonah took a slow breath. I did not come here to beg, he said, and I am too tired to curse. The Empress raised one glowing eyebrow. Then, why do you still stand? She asked. Why not collapse and be done with it? Jonah's fingers tightened around his cane. Because, he said, someone asked me to speak. The Empress laughed softly. No one asks humans to speak, she said. They are spoken over. Jonah looked up, meeting her gaze for the first time. My people asked me, he said. The laughter died. They are dead, the Empress replied. Yes, Jonah said. But they trusted me anyway. A strange silence filled the hall. The Empress straightened. You may speak, she said at last. But understand this, your words cannot change your fate. Jonah nodded again. I know, he said. Then he added, something no one expected, but they might change yours. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. The Empress did not silence them immediately. She stared at the shattered human standing alone beneath her throne. And for the first time in centuries, she felt something unfamiliar stir inside her chest. Not fear, not anger, curiosity, and far away, beyond the glass walls of the hall. The stars watched quietly, as if they too were listening. Jonah Reyes took a slow breath, feeling the weight of every eye upon him. The Empress, glowing and cold, waited for him to speak. Around him, the court of 1,000 conquered species murmured softly, unsure if they should listen or turn away. He could feel their fear and curiosity pressing against his ribs, but he did not flinch. Humans were not made of metal or energy. They were made of something far harder to break. I know you think humans were weak, Jonah said, his voice low but clear. You think we fell because we lacked power, because our worlds burned too fast under your fleets. You are right. We were weak. Smaller than the stars we tried to reach. Smaller than the fleets that crushed us. Smaller than your empire. The Empress leaned forward, studying him carefully. She had ruled countless worlds, seen countless beings crushed beneath her will. She had never heard a human speak like this. Not with such honesty. Not with such calm. Jonah continued. But do you know what we had? Do you know why, even knowing our deaths were certain, we still stood to fight? He paused, wincing as a breath left him in a small, painful hiss. One of his legs trembled slightly, but he steadied himself on the cane. Every movement reminded him of what he had lost. Every scar, every missing limb, every burned city, every life he could not save, was etched into his body. But it had not broken him. Not fully. We loved, he said. We loved fiercely, foolishly, completely. We loved our children, our friends, our homes, even the oceans, the forests, and the sky above us. Love does not stop death. It does not shield you from fire. It does not prevent the skies from raining ash. But love gave us strength. Strength to stand when everyone else ran. Strength to fight even when we knew it was hopeless. The Empress raised one hand. Love did not save you. It cannot. You are extinct. Jonah nodded. Yes, we are gone. But do not mistake extinction for defeat. We fought not because we would survive, but because we mattered while we still could. Our homes fell. Our fleets were destroyed. Our people died. And still, when it mattered most, we stood. A strange silence fell over the hall. The generals shifted uneasily. Many had expected a human to cry, to beg, to curse. None expected this quiet defiance. None expected truth spoken without anger, without hate, without surrender. Jonah's remaining eye glimmered with tired resolve. When your ships came over Earth, I saw children hiding beneath tables. I saw parents holding them close, telling them it would be okay, even when they themselves knew it was not. I held the line with teachers, farmers, scientists, and soldiers, all of us together, standing, waiting for the end. And in that moment, I realized something. You could destroy everything outside of us, but you could not take what was inside. The Empress tilted her head. And what was inside you? Hope, he said softly. Hope, courage, memory, love. The things no fleet can burn. You think you have crushed us, but even in ruins, humanity remembered. We remembered our friends. We remembered our songs. Our histories. Our promises. We remembered each other. That is what survived. He swallowed hard. His throat ached. Each word felt like a hammer striking bone. I remember my sister, he whispered. I remember my daughter. I remember my home, even though it is gone. I remember the first time I learned to write my name, the first time I laughed, the first time I saw the ocean. I remember every person who looked at me and said, "You must live." And I lived. I survived not because I was strong, but because someone else believed I could be. The Empress stared at him, speechless for a moment. No subject, no general, no ambassador had ever spoken of the past, of love, of memory. They spoke only of power, of victory, of fear. But this human, this shattered, broken human, spoke of life. Jonah took another breath, leaning heavily on his cane. We knew we would fall. Every soldier knew. Every civilian knew. Yet we chose to rise every morning. To fight. To teach our children to speak, to laugh, to love. We chose to face death with dignity because that is what made us human. And even now, when nothing remains, I tell you this. A human may die, A human may fall, but humanity does not vanish. Not completely. Not ever. He looked at the Empress again. His voice, though weak, grew stronger. I am here broken. I am here dying. And I am here to speak not for revenge, not for hatred, not for pity. I am here to remind you that even when you crush a species, you do not destroy their essence. You do not destroy their memory. You do not destroy their heart. A shiver ran through the court. Beings who had lived centuries of conquest felt an unease they could not name. For a moment, the Empress herself felt the weight of every fallen human. Every voice that had whispered, laughed, cried, and loved. Every small life that had dared to defy a galaxy of death. Jonah paused. His chest rose and fell slowly. We were weak. We were small. But we were human. And what makes a human is not strength. It is the choice to stand, to love, and to remember, even in the face of the impossible. The hall was silent. Even the Empress did not speak. The words of a shattered human, small and broken before her throne, hung heavier than any fleet of ships, any weapon of war, any empire she had ever built. For the first time in centuries, she wondered, had she truly destroyed humanity? Or had she only awakened it? Jonah Reyes paused, letting the weight of his words sink into the hall. The Empress leaned forward slightly, her glowing eyes fixed on him, unreadable yet curious. The generals and diplomats whispered among themselves, but Jonah barely noticed. For a moment, he was no longer a prisoner. He was a father, a son, a human being carrying every memory of a world that no longer existed. My daughter was 5, he began, his voice quiet, almost a whisper, yet it carried across the hall as if the stars themselves were listening. Her name was Leela. She loved the sky. She believed stars were holes in the heavens where the world beyond peeked through. Every night, she would press her tiny hands against the window and count them. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried, but she always counted. The Empress tilted her head. She had never seen a child survive in a galaxy of conquest, nor had she heard anyone speak of someone so small with such importance. To her, children were collateral, numbers, fleeting sparks. But Jonah's words made her pause. When your fleet came, he continued, his voice catching slightly, I carried her to a hiding place under the ruins of our home. The fire was everywhere. The sky burned like blood. She held onto my arm and asked me why it hurt, why everything was falling apart. Jonah's lips tightened. I told her it would be okay. I told her to close her eyes and count the stars. I lied. I did not know if we would survive. I did not know if I could save her. But I held her, and for a moment, I made her believe. He looked at the Empress, his one eye shimmering with unshed tears. Even in the moments when hope vanished, humans create hope. Even when we are crushed, we reach for light. I held her because I had to. Not for myself, not for survival, but because love demanded it. The hall was silent. Beings who had seen entire civilizations burn shifted uncomfortably. None had thought of love as a weapon. None had thought of hope as resistance. And yet, here was a human, broken, wounded, standing before the ruler of 1,000 worlds, and he wielded nothing but memory and heart. I lost her, Jonah said finally, his voice shaking. Not here, not now. But then, the fire took her. The screams. The smoke. I could not save her. I could not save anyone. And I carried that loss every day afterward, like a stone in my chest. It wanted to crush me. It wanted me to hate. It wanted me to die. He paused, letting the pain sink in, not for himself, but for the Empress to understand. And yet, I did not break. I did not surrender to hatred. I did not curse the stars. I did not kneel before anger or despair. I am here. I am alive in the shadow of death, speaking to the one who destroyed everything I loved, because even shattered humans speak. Even when we fall, we leave words behind. We leave stories. We leave proof that we existed, that we mattered. The Empress felt something stir inside her. It was not fear, not anger, not admiration exactly. It was confusion. She had ruled countless empires. She had taken worlds with a single command. And yet, no victory had ever touched her like this. A human so small, so weak, so broken had done what no fleet, no army, no weapon could. He had made her feel. Jonah took another slow breath, each one heavy and labored. You destroyed our cities, our fleets, our homes. You burned our forests and poisoned our waters. You killed my friends, my neighbors, my teachers, my soldiers. You took everything. And still, you did not take this. He pressed his hand gently against his chest. This is human spirit. This is memory. This is love. It cannot be conquered. It cannot be destroyed. Even death cannot take it away. He looked straight at the Empress. Do you understand now? We fought not because we could win, but because it mattered to stand. Because it mattered to love. Because it mattered to live, even briefly, in the face of the impossible. The Empress had no answer. No words came. She had commanded entire species to kneel, to beg, to die. Yet she had never commanded nor witnessed the endurance of love. She had never seen a creature rise from despair simply because they chose to remember. And now she realized she was listening to the last echo of a world she had tried to erase. Jonah's voice softened. I am broken, yes. But I carry the memory of every human, every life, every hope that ever existed on Earth. And if I am gone, if I die here, at least you will hear it. At least someone will know. We are gone, yes, but what we loved. What we stood for. Lives in words, in memory, in the hearts of those who remember us. For the first time, the Empress's glowing eyes wavered. Something stirred in her chest, a faint tremor she had never felt in 3 centuries of conquest. A question, a doubt, a recognition of something she could not destroy, could not command, and could not understand. Jonah straightened as much as his body allowed. He was tired. Every breath cost him pain. Yet he stood because humans always stood. Even in ruins, even in shadow, they always stood. Do you see now? He asked softly. Even when everything is gone, we remain. Even when you destroy us, we endure. Even when you rule the stars, humans will leave their mark. You may erase our cities, but you cannot erase our hearts. You may burn our world, but you cannot burn our memory. You may conquer death, but you cannot conquer humanity. The hall was still. Every being present felt it. And the Empress, who had never felt powerless, who had never been silenced, who had never questioned her victories, now realized something she could not name. A human, shattered and bleeding, had made her listen. And that, perhaps, was the first victory humanity had ever truly won. The Empress had ruled for centuries, yet she had never felt a human speak with such force. Jonah Reyes, broken and bleeding, stood before her, not as a prisoner, but as a mirror reflecting something she had never seen. Defiance without violence, courage without a fleet, and hope without reason. The court watched in tense silence, unsure how to respond to words that carried no weapons, but struck harder than any blade. You speak as if your people were more than dust. The Empress said finally, her voice steady but tinged with something foreign curiosity, perhaps unease. All your cities burned. All your fleets were destroyed. Your world is gone. Why do you still stand here and speak to me as if you are not defeated? Jonah's remaining eye glimmered faintly with pain and fire. Because what you destroyed outside of us is not all that matters, he said. You think victory is measured in smoke and ashes, in conquered lands and captured fleets. You are wrong. Victory is measured in spirit. You can destroy flesh, steel, and stone, but you cannot destroy what a human carries inside. He took a shuddering breath, leaning heavily on his cane, each movement a reminder of the suffering he had endured. We were small. We were weak. We were doomed the moment you arrived. But we remembered. We loved. We chose to stand. And we chose to leave a mark that no fire can erase. The Empress frowned. Do you think that makes you special? She asked sharply. You are but one human. You have lost everything. You are weak, wounded, and broken. And yet you speak as if your pain matters to me? Yes, Jonah said quietly, firmly. It does, because pain teaches. Pain warns. And pain can shape those who inflict it. He looked at her directly, and his voice grew stronger. You conquered Earth, you destroyed my people. You think this is the end. But it is only the beginning of what you do not understand. You conquered our world, but you did not conquer our memory. You may have silenced our voices, but you cannot silence what humans carry in their hearts. The Empress studied him. She had crushed armies, toppled governments, and erased histories. Yet here was a human telling her she had left something behind, something she could not destroy. And what, exactly, should I learn from this? She asked, though her voice was quieter now. Jonah's lips curved faintly, though there was no joy in his expression. You should learn this, he said. When you destroy without understanding, when you conquer without respect, when you rule without seeing, you create survivors. Not soldiers, not rebels, not resistance armies, but survivors. Witnesses, stories, memories that refuse to die. And those survivors, those witnesses, will carry the truth of what you did. Even if I am the last, even if all else is gone, I am here to tell you, humans endure. Humans survive. Humans remember. And one day, that memory will find a way to fight back, not with ships, not with weapons, but with truth. With courage. With spirit. With life itself. The Empress's glow flickered. No one had ever spoken to her like this. They had begged, they had cursed, they had screamed, but this human, broken and battered, spoke in a way that pierced deeper than any weapon. He spoke in a language she could not command, the language of the human heart. You warn me? She asked softly. Do you threaten me? No, Jonah said. I do not threaten you. I warn you. You may conquer the stars, you may crush entire species, you may silence voices, but you will never conquer the essence of life. You will never conquer what it means to be human. We stand even when we fall. We rise even when everything burns. And even in defeat, we leave a mark that cannot be erased. He paused, wincing as a breath left him. Do you feel it? He asked. Do you feel the weight of a species you thought was gone? Do you feel the truth you cannot command? The hall was silent. Every being present sensed the shift, the intangible force of human spirit, pressing against the might of an empire. For centuries, the Empress had believed that nothing could challenge her. And now, for the first time, she felt a tremor, not in her body, not in her throne, but in her understanding of what power could truly be. Jonah straightened as much as his wounds allowed. I am broken, yes. I am dying. But I am here. And I speak for every human who ever lived. We may be gone from Earth, but we are not gone from memory. We are not gone from courage. We are not gone from hope. And you, Empress of 1,000 worlds, you will carry that knowledge whether you like it or not. He looked at her one last time, his voice softer now, almost a whisper. You may command, you may conquer, you may destroy, but humans endure. The Empress sat in silence, the weight of his words pressing on her in a way she had never known. For the first time in centuries, she could not command the moment. She could not order the human to kneel, to beg, to die. She could only listen, and in that silence, Jonah Reyes, the last of his kind, broken, shattered, and yet unbowed, became more powerful than any fleet, more enduring than any empire, and more alive than the stars themselves. Jonah Reyes lowered his gaze, resting heavily on his cane. The Empress leaned forward on her throne, her glowing eyes fixed on him. She had expected fear. She had expected pleading, maybe even rage. But this human so small, so broken, spoke only truth, steady and quiet, as if his very existence demanded it. "I have lived through fire," Jonah said softly. "I have watched cities fall. I have carried the bodies of my friends and neighbors. I have seen children who did not understand death stare into it with wide eyes. I have felt my world die, piece by piece. And yet," he paused, letting the silence stretch, heavy and fragile, "I have not stopped speaking. I have not stopped remembering. I have not stopped being human." The Empress's gaze did not waver, yet something inside her shifted. She had never seen someone endure so much and still refuse to bow entirely. "You speak as if your suffering matters to me," she said. "Why should it?" Jonah's one visible eye gleamed faintly. "Because it does. Not for you, not for revenge, not for pity. It matters because humans never forget. Even in the face of extinction, we remember. We carry those we have lost inside us. We carry hope, even when hope has no reason to exist. And we carry love, even when love seems impossible." He swallowed, the motion painful. "I speak of my daughter, Leela. She was 5. Bright, curious, full of life. She loved the stars, believed they were holes in the sky where heaven peeked through. I told her to count them when the world burned. I told her everything would be okay. I lied. I could not save her. But I held her hand, and I gave her something no empire can destroy: comfort, even in fear." The Empress was silent. She had conquered worlds, destroyed planets, and crushed species. Yet she had never seen courage, grief, and love wrapped together so tightly. Here was a human who had suffered beyond reason, yet had the strength to carry memory instead of hatred. Jonah continued, "I forgive you." The words hung in the hall like a living thing. The general shifted. Scholars blinked. Diplomats whispered. The Empress did not move. "Forgive me," she asked, her voice almost unsteady. She had expected anger, curses, revenge. She had not expected forgiveness. "Yes," Jonah said, steadying himself on the cane. "Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let you live inside me. Hatred would break me. Hatred would make me less human. I forgive you because that is what humans do. We survive. We endure. We love even those who harm us. We carry memory, but we do not let cruelty consume us entirely." For a long moment, no one in the hall breathed. Even the stars outside seemed to pause, watching this impossible moment unfold. The Empress, who had ruled thousands of worlds with absolute authority, could not speak. She had never been rendered speechless, yet here she was, facing a human who had lost everything and still stood taller than empires. Jonah's gaze softened. "I do not say this lightly. My people are gone. My home is gone. My daughter is gone. I am broken in body, and my world is ashes. But even in this, I am more than you can take. You cannot destroy what makes us human. Our spirit is alive. Our memory lives. And our courage endures beyond the fleets that burn us, beyond the weapons that crush us, beyond death itself." He raised his head, looking directly at the Empress. "You took our cities. You took our homes. You killed our people. You tried to take everything. And still, I am here. And I speak. And that is more than you have conquered. That is more than you can conquer." The Empress shifted in her throne. Her advisors whispered nervously. But she remained silent, watching. She had expected a human to crumble, to curse, to beg. She had expected weakness. Instead, she saw the impossible, a human unbroken in soul, defiant without pride and tender without fear. Jonah's voice dropped, almost to a whisper, yet it carried across the hall like a flame. If you want to understand humans, understand this. We survive not because we are the strongest. We survive because we remember. We survive because we love. We survive because even in the shadow of destruction, we choose to stand, to speak, and to hope. You can take our bodies. You can take our worlds. You cannot take our hearts. You cannot take what it means to be human. The silence that followed was deafening. The Empress's chest tightened. No victory, no command, no weapon had ever left her feeling this way. And she realized slowly that she could not command this moment. She could not undo it. She could not erase the power of a human's words, a human's memory, a human's heart. Jonah leaned on his cane, exhausted, every breath a battle. And yet, in his exhaustion, he radiated life more vividly than any empire's fleet, any conquered world, any throne of stars. He was small. He was broken. But he was human. And the Empress, for the first time in her endless life, felt the weight of what that truly meant. You may destroy worlds, Jonah said softly, but humans leave more behind than ruins. We leave memory. We leave hope. We leave love. And one day, even you will remember that. The Empress remained silent, unable to speak. She had been conquered, not by a fleet, not by a weapon, but by the last human standing, and in that silence, Jonah Reyes, broken, battered and yet unbowed, became more powerful than any empire. The Empress remained seated upon her crystal throne, though her mind felt heavier than the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds. Jonah Reyes stood before her, his body broken, his breath ragged, yet his spirit radiated more strength than any fleet she had ever commanded. Silence filled the hall, but it was not emptiness, it was the quiet of understanding. The pause before a truth too powerful to deny. You speak as if humans are eternal, she said finally, her voice softer than she expected. You are dying. Your species is gone. Your home is nothing but ashes. And yet you stand and claim you survive. Jonah's one visible eye met hers, unwavering. We survive, he said. Not because we are immortal, not because we are strong, but because we endure. Humanity does not live in fleets or cities or weapons. Humanity lives in memory, in hope, in courage, in love. You may have destroyed Earth, but you did not destroy what made us human. That cannot be taken, not by fire, not by fleets, not even by you. The Empress leaned forward slightly, her glowing eyes narrowing. She had never heard such words. She had ruled empires that spanned galaxies, and yet no commander, no diplomat, no soldier had ever spoken like this. Jonah was not asking for mercy. He was not pleading for survival. He was reminding her of something she could not conquer, the human spirit. Jonah raised his head, speaking more clearly now, as if every word were carved from the last fragments of his strength. I have carried loss every day. I have walked among ruins, holding bodies I could not save. I have felt the fire consume my home, my friends, my family. And I have looked at the stars and cried, because they did not stop shining even when our world burned. That is humanity. That is our defiance. We rise even when everything falls. We speak even when no one listens. We remember even when memory should die. A tremor passed through the Empress. No one had ever made her feel so small, not even her most defeated enemies. She had conquered, she had destroyed, she had erased countless species. And yet here was a human battered wounded, dying, reminding her that victory could not touch everything. You speak of love, the Empress said quietly. Of memory. Of courage. You are not angry? Jonah smiled faintly, though it was weary and haunted. Anger is for those who cannot survive, he said. Hatred is for those who have nothing left. I forgive. Not because it makes you right, not because it absolves you, but because I refuse to carry you in my heart. My people are gone. My home is gone. My daughter is gone. And I will not let her memory be poisoned by hatred. That is humanity. That is what we leave behind, even when all else is lost. The Empress's breath hitched. The words pierced deeper than any weapon. She had never known a species to survive through love, memory, and courage alone. She had destroyed armies, entire cities, and yet she felt powerless before a human's truth. Jonah's voice grew softer, more intimate, as if he were speaking only to her now. Even in defeat, we leave something behind. Every life matters, every memory counts. We endure because we choose to, and we choose to endure because someone once stood for us, loved us, believed in us. That is what makes humans unstoppable. That is what makes us eternal in ways you cannot destroy. You may take everything, Empress, but you cannot take what we carry inside. That lives forever. A long silence followed. The Empress stared at him, her chest tight, unable to command, unable to speak, unable to feel victory. For the first time, she realized that the true power of a species was not in weapons or fleets, but in what survived after death. And this human so small, so broken, so exhausted had survived where entire civilizations had crumbled. Jonah lowered his gaze again, his breathing slow and deliberate. I am dying, he whispered. I am weak. I am broken. And yet, I am alive in a way that you cannot touch. You may rule the stars, but you cannot rule memory. You may conquer the present, but the past belongs to those who endured. You may command, you may destroy, you may burn. But you will never destroy humanity. Not fully. Not ever. The Empress felt her chest tighten as if she had been struck. She had expected death, defeat, surrender, maybe even curses, but never this. Never forgiveness. Never defiance without weapons. Never a warning that was also a lesson in courage, endurance, and love. Jonah lifted his head one last time, his voice almost a whisper now, yet it carried across the hall like a song. We were small, we were weak, we were shattered. And yet we stand. Because we choose to. Because we remember. Because we love. And even when we die, that does not end us. We endure. That is what I want you to know. That is what I want you to remember. The hall remained silent. The generals, the scholars, the diplomats, all of them felt the weight of the words. But none felt it as deeply as the Empress herself. She had conquered thousands of worlds. She had destroyed billions of lives. And yet, in the presence of a single shattered human, she had been undone. Jonah Reyes, bleeding, broken, and exhausted, had spoken not only for himself but for an entire species. And in doing so, he had left a mark on the Empress that no empire could erase. For the first time in her endless life, she understood what it meant to face a human who could not be conquered. Jonah Reyes leaned heavily on his cane, his body trembling with every breath. The Empress, seated upon her throne of crystal and light, remained silent, her glowing eyes fixed on him. For centuries, she had faced warriors, conquerors, and rulers who challenged her, yet none had ever spoken to her like this human did. He was broken, battered, and fading, and yet he was stronger than any fleet she had ever commanded. My time is short, Jonah said, his voice hoarse but steady. My body is failing. My lungs, my bones, even my heart, cannot last much longer. And yet, I speak because it matters. I speak because humans always speak, even when no one listens. Even when everything seems lost. Even when we are shattered. He lifted his one hand, trembling. I forgive you, he whispered. The words hung in the hall like a living thing, impossible to ignore. Not because you deserve it, not because it erases the past, but because I refuse to let hatred live inside me. I refuse to let your empire dwell in my heart. I forgive you, and I leave that forgiveness with you." The Empress stared at him, unable to speak. She had conquered galaxies, obliterated species, and crushed countless worlds, yet she had never felt so powerless. This human, this single, fragile, broken human, had done what no weapon could do. He had pierced her with truth. He had left her speechless. Jonas smiled faintly, the gesture fragile yet radiant. "I carried my daughter Lila in my heart when the fire came. I carried every human, every life, every hope. And even though they are gone, I carry them still. You cannot take that from me. You cannot erase what humans leave behind. Not our memories, not our courage, not our love. You cannot destroy humanity's spirit, no matter how hard you try." He coughed, a wet, painful sound, and leaned heavily on the cane. His eyes, bright with life yet fading, met the Empress's gaze one last time. "You have conquered worlds," he said softly, "but you have not conquered the human heart. You have not conquered memory. You have not conquered hope. That is what we leave behind. That is what we are. And even if my body dies here, humanity lives. In every story, every song, every heart that remembers." The Empress felt something stir within her chest. She had never known this feeling and ache that was not anger, not fear, but awe. She had never experienced the power of a species that could endure everything she had thrown at it and still rise stronger in spirit. She understood now. Humanity was gone from Earth, yes, but it would never truly be gone. Its courage, its love, its hope, all of that would persist. Beyond death, beyond time, beyond conquest. Jonah's breathing slowed. His hands shook. His head dipped slightly. "Remember," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "humans endure. Because we choose to. We rise when all seems lost. We love when love is impossible. And even in our ashes, we leave something that can never be burned away." The Empress remained silent. The court had long fallen still, watching as the last human stood before the ruler of 1,000 worlds. For the first time, she realized that words could be stronger than fleets, memory more powerful than armies, and courage more enduring than empires. Jonah Reyes closed his eye and inhaled one final breath. His body, exhausted and broken, gave way. He fell to the ground, silent and still. The hall remained quiet. No one moved. Even the stars beyond the windows seemed to pause, as if witnessing the passing of a species that had dared to defy extinction through spirit alone. The Empress rose from her throne. She knelt beside him, the first gesture of humility she had ever shown in centuries. She laid a hand on his shoulder, though it was too late to save him. Her voice, trembling slightly, broke the silence. "You have shown me what I could never destroy," she said. "Not fleets, not fire, not empires. You have shown me that even in defeat, even in death, the human heart endures." She stayed kneeling for a long time, absorbing his words, his courage, and his legacy. And in that quiet moment, she understood something she had never known. Humanity had been defeated in body, yes, but it had triumphed in spirit. It had left a mark that no empire, no ruler, no weapon could ever erase. Years later, the Empress would tell her advisors, her generals, and her scholars, Earth was a sacred memory, a symbol of courage, hope, and love. Human history would be preserved, honored, and remembered across the galaxy. Humanity had fallen, but it had also conquered. Not with weapons, not with power, but with something far stronger, the will to endure, the courage to love, and the strength to forgive. And every night, the Empress would gaze at the stars, remembering the last human who had spoken to her. She would repeat his words softly, in awe, in reverence, and sometimes in tears. "You may conquer worlds, but humans will conquer your conscience. We endure. We rise, we love. And even when everything is gone, we leave a mark that cannot be erased. Jonah Reyes was gone. Humanity was gone. And yet, in that hall of stars, in the heart of the Empress, humanity had won.